Well, it's a good morning, isn't it? Flippin' heck. How you guys doing? Yeah? Will you allow me to just open the scriptures for maybe 15 minutes or so? Is that okay? And none of you believe that I can do it in 15 minutes. Whatever, Jim. Whatever. You go to the next slide for me, Adam. I really appreciate it. I just briefly want to talk about something. So it's the beginning of a new year and an opportunity for me to kind of just go, with you for a second, okay? And that's what I want to do. I just want to share a little bit of the dream that God has put in my heart for His church and how we might experience it in a more profound way here in Canterbury. You guys up for that? Is that cool? Okay, great. It all starts with longing. I really have such a strong sense that for some of us in this room, we have become afraid of our longings, our desires of the enemy, because disappointment has been our friend too often. And if anything, the Christian faith doesn't want you to long and desire less. It, in the words of C.S. Lewis, finds our desires too meager. And he's like, would you yearn more from me? And when we are in a place of yearning, what we will find is that Jesus will invite us into certain ways of living that enable us to access some of that for which we're longing. So I want to tap into that part of you that wants more, wants this thing to be more real, wants this thing to grip you in a more passionate way. For some of you, you're like, I'm not sure I can handle much more passion for this. But I think that's probably the exception. And I just want to give you permission to long this morning. Okay? You go to the next slide for me. There are 4 circles. I'm going to be visual, okay? And this is just a metaphor, okay? But there are 4 circles that genuinely capture some of the ways here we think our longings can become fruitful. And I want to invite you into this. Because next slide, when our longings get funneled into a kind of life, what we see is a fruitfulness of an experience and a reality and a tangible thing. Christianity was never meant to be a belief. It was always meant to be an experience. Yes, it is a belief, but it's never merely a belief. So let me unpack these 4 circles for you ever so briefly, okay? I've got a clock in front of me here. I'm watching closely. The first circle is the big one. And what it is it's a family on mission. Now, in a sense, Canterbury Vineyard is a family. That's who we are. We don't like to talk in terms of congregation, because these are so impersonal. And we long for the relational of what His church was always meant to be. We are a family. But one of the problems with being a family this size, and some of you experienced this over the holidays when extended family got together, is you can't really go deep with anybody. You're able to talk about the high points, you know. How was your Christmas? Ill, not ill, restful, not restful, these things. That's about as deep as you can go. And so what we need to do to genuinely experience the reality of family is you need to break it down into bite-sized chunks. And here we refer to that as our communities. So in a very real sense, if you're not participating in a community, you're not experiencing a living, breathing reality of family. Because while this is an extended family, and it's just not got all of the good stuff to it. Next slide for me. Let me put it this way, because many of you are starting to think a certain way about what I'm saying here. And I want to undercut it before it starts to become a thought process for you. We don't do programs. Okay, programs are impersonal. Programs are something that we impose from the top down. What we do here is people. We don't believe in programs, we believe in people. And we believe that when real people have been genuinely captivated by the love of God in Jesus, something explodes. A person. A person. Each and every one of you are the fruit of this family. You are the outworking of what Jesus is doing in this family. People. And what this means is that if we want to develop people who carry this, then what it's going to require of us is a kind of life, a kind of lifestyle, or let me put it this way, rhythms of life. Or living with a degree of intentionality. Now, one of the things that's interesting about Christmas for me is I grew up in Southern California, and my family didn't have loads of traditions. We had a couple around Christmas. But what I have found is that traditions are actually so important. But here I was in my 40s discovering traditions. And really what traditions are rhythms of life that happen at different seasons. So, I don't know, do you open your gifts on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? Do you, is the meal very specifically set out? I don't know what your traditions are, but what it has the possibility of doing, traditions, and I've only just learned this in the last 15 years of my life, is it unwraps and releases the aroma of the beauty of an experience. And rhythms are that. They're ways we live intentionally so that we can suck the marrow out of something. Otherwise, life just blows right past us. You go to the next slide for me, buddy. Now, the problem is it going? You go to the next one. I'm sorry. That one, yes. The problem is when I start to talk about rhythms or living intentionally, all of you go to discipline, right? Who has a New Year's resolution? Raise your hand. And we got a few resolutions in the house. Good for you. Good for you. Christianity is not a resolution, and it should never be. Because Christianity is desire meeting grace. It's not willpower. And we're going to talk about some of this on the retreat, at the Real Life Retreat. But willpower is what we often in the Western Christian church substitute for genuine transformation. But what Jesus wants is for you to desire more. And then to position yourself so that His grace can land on that desire and turn it into a raging fire that changes your diary. You get it? You get it? Yeah. Christian life is not willpower. He's not interested on how, you can try. What He wants is to set you free from that. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. And I will give you more things to do? No. Rest. If Christianity is rest, then willpower is an enemy of genuine Christianity. But it's what most of us experience. So what I'm inviting you into is not a program, it's not self-discipline, it's not willpower, it's a desire that's been set on fire by the presence of God. And in order to be set on fire, sometimes you just got to get yourself to a specific place with that desire so that He can trigger it. Is this making any sense at all, my friends? I don't know if it is. All right, let's talk about the 3 circles inside. So if the first circle is family on mission that begins us into a journey of living intentionally, what does that living intentionally begin to look like? And the first one is this, and this is the first circle. It's hunger. If you go to the next slide for me. Hunger for more of Jesus and His life with a capital L. I have come that they might have life, and that more abundant, overflowing. Hunger for that. You see, spiritual growth is again not a discipline. It's a desire. It's a passion. It's a hunger. And if anything, living a life where we genuinely begin to nurture and resource our hunger is incredibly crucial. We're doing that this morning, corporately. That's really important. But you know what's even better? You know what's even better? Sitting around with a smaller group of people that know you and know how to know your BS and hear you when you talk about your life and know when to say, okay, yes, but tell me more. That know how to pull the real hunger and desire out of you. Because this life crushes desire with disappointment. And if you aren't known, hunger is easily covered over. I've experienced that so much. I have so appreciated the opportunities when I was a part of smaller, bite-sized families where I was known and people would not let me get away with just saying the right thing. They're like, you're more than that. Jesus loves you more than that. He wants to give you more than you're experiencing right now. That's how we are transformed. Hunger. Let me just give you a few of these verses, okay? I'm not going to go through all of these. Next one for me. I keep forgetting that you're on that slide and I'm changing mine and thinking they're changing for you. I'm not going to read all of these, but let me just pick one. If you, this is the one in the middle in white, John chapter 4. This is Jesus speaking to the woman at the well. Can I just kind of trigger your appetite a little bit? Would that be okay? That's what I want to do here. If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have instead asked Him, and He would have given you living water. Everyone who drinks this living water, this water of this well, will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the living water I give them will, what's it say there? Never thirst. Well, that sounds attractive. How many of you never thirst? And I'm not talking literally. I don't think we've arrived, have we? Can I unleash your hunger a little bit? You can experience God in such depth, such reality, such power that you will never thirst. Jesus is saying this is a possibility. You see, when you start to open the scriptures together and stop playing church, hunger follows. Because what Jesus is talking about is really, really good. You go to the next slide for me. I told you I'm just going to do one. Let's look at this one. Ephesians 3. That they may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ. And not only be able to grasp it, but to know this love. And that word, I always say this, is gnosko, which is about experiential knowledge. Know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Who's filled to all the measure of all the fullness? Is anyone? How many of you guys have a clear experience and revelation of the height, the width, the length, and the depth of the love of God? You live your life, life comes and smacks you in the side of the face, and it's never a fatal blow because you know that you are His beloved deeply in your being. Yeah? Then maybe there's a space for hunger. You see, this is a rhythm. This is an intentional life. A kind of life that we live when we're a family on mission in a smaller kind of bite-sized chunk, and we seek out all that God purchased for us when He hung on that cross. I want to make you hungry this morning. But there's another circle. Okay? And the next circle is on the next slide. And it's love. Because when you have genuinely hungered and tasted, something happens. You long for others to know it. Now, for you and for me, we all know that evangelism is a four-letter word in our culture. Okay? And the problem is this. The problem is that hunger, giving birth to life with a capital L, hasn't spilled out of the church in love, loving communication for a very long time. And so what we instead get are programs of evangelism, which is impersonal and pressed in and forced and, dare I say it, based on self-discipline. As you begin to taste the reality of this, one thing's going to happen. You're going to leak. When you hunger, you're going to begin to leak love. And what's interesting here is, if you look at the next slide for me, there you go. This is in Mark chapter 4. It's fascinating. I could take a whole talk on this, but I won't. I'll just go briefly through it. In verse 21 of Mark 4, he says this: do you bring in a lamp and put it under a bowl or a bed? No, of course you don't. You put it on its stand so it can give light. So Jesus is talking about the idea that you and I are the light of the world. And of course, that's meant to shine. But that's not a welcome reality. That's not helpful to us in this culture that doesn't want us to shine a light. Why? Because they've got so many different ideas of what you're trying to do when you shine a light. Right? Jesus says that. Then further down in verse 35, it says this. Jesus is done teaching now, and it says, he said to his disciples, let us go over to the other side. Now, again, this is so involved, but I won't go into it. I won't. I promise I won't. The other side of the lake is where all those who were non-Jews lived. Jesus is in Capernaum, and he's teaching. He goes to the other side of the lake, where all of the Gentiles are. Jesus, after a day of teaching, he's exhausted. He gets in a boat, and he goes to the other side. Why does he do that? It's intentional living. Those people don't know that they're loved. Those people don't know that I came for them too. And so I'm going to get in a boat, and I'm going to intentionally navigate through a storm. Verse 37, a furious squall comes up. When you change your life, squalls happen. When you live intentionally, you're going to get a squall in the face. Because the enemy's scared of your intentional living. He's scared of these rhythms. And what's going to happen is that as you choose into them, you go to the other side. So Jesus is making a lifestyle choice to interrupt his schedule, go to the other side of the lake. Why? Because there's a man over there that has a legion of demons inside him. And he's going to set him free. You see, I'm inviting you into not only the rhythm of hunger, but the rhythm of love that flows from someone who has hungered and tasted, and then you position yourself. Church is not a place to hide from the big bad world. When it says the gates of hell shall not prevail, that word is endure. The gates of hell are on the defensive, and the church is on the offensive. Do you understand? That's what the original language is saying. It's not us being protected because those nasty gates of hell are attacking us. It's actually the gates of hell not being able to withstand our intentionality. Again. But why bother? Why bother? And this is the question I want to ask you. Is Christianity, is the gospel, is the reality of Jesus good news? Is it good news? And I want this to be the year where it becomes good news if your answer is one of two. I don't know or no. If it's not good news, you see, it was such good news that the early church gave up everything to get the word out. I never want to program evangelism. Why? Because it's either good news that has so thrilled your heart and leaks out of you, Or you're probably sharing a different message than they need to hear. You're just going to confirm the cynicism that so many people have. So I want to invite you in to the intentional lifestyle of love. And the final one is passion. And by this I mean passion for justice. Okay? So we've got hunger, we've got love, and now we've got passion. Passion, because He is redeeming the world. Jesus didn't only come to get a bunch of people saved so He can take them to heaven. He's remaking the world. He's redoing the creation that got messed up the first time around. And we see this in the next slide. It's slide 66, bro. When Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. Yes, salt is about flavor. I love salt on my food. I go crazy with it. But for Jesus, salt mostly would have been a preservative. It mostly would have been a preservative. And that's what you and I are meant to do. Do you know that most of the orphanages in the last 500 years have been started by Christians? You know that most of the social net that exists in the Western world was originated from followers of Jesus? You see, we have flavored society, civilization, and we're meant to do it again. We're meant to see injustice and go, not on my watch, and get involved and make a difference and step out and inconvenience ourselves for that. And I'm looking around at faces that are already doing that. Hunger, love, and passion. Next slide for me, buddy. Guys, I want to invite you into this rhythm that is the ethos. It's the DNA of this church family called Kent Street. These 4 circles. Be a part of a family. Hunger together. Love those who are far from God together. And have a passion for the renewing of this world together. This is powerful. If you go to slide 68 for me, right? As you begin to live intentionally with these circles, from hunger to love to passion, from hunger to love to passion, in the context of family on mission together, what you will find is that you are transformed. And the longing and the desire that I started this by talking about is going to start to find its appetite whetted. If you go to the next slide for me, Mike. Because, click it again, what's going to happen is that Jesus and His kingdom are going to become tangible. You guys want the real Christian deal. You're hungry for the real thing. Well, then get into a lifestyle of intentional rhythms around hunger and love and passion in a family on mission, and just see how God meets you. Passivity won't encounter this. Passivity won't encounter this. Consumerism won't encounter this. Coming to a gathering like this once a month won't encounter this. The reality of the Christian life that will enthrall and explode in your life is happening when you engage with the rhythms of His life. I'm challenging you in 2023 to step into this DNA that is us as a church. This is who we are. And I long to see you guys just begin to change the world. You see, my job is to resource that journey for you. Because I look around this room and I see people who are going to change the world. If they could start to taste this, if they could start to reposition themselves, if they could start to harness their dissatisfaction into action, something is going to change, and it's going to be beautiful to behold, and we're just going to go, wow. Look what He's done. In 5 years, we're going to look back and we're going to go, wow, look what He's done. In 10 years, we're going to look back and we're going to go, wow, look what He's done. And you know what? He's going to get all the glory, but you and I are going to get the fun of being along for the ride. That's what I want to see. I want to see Southeast Kent totally transformed. You know, I have to stop there. I have to stop there. Joe, will you come up here, man, and just kind of strum something to create some vibe? Stand up with me, guys.